Mr. President, it's Thursday, and as you know, because you preside a lot on Thursday, that means it's the afternoon in which I get to talk about someone in my state who's doing a great job for the state and oftentimes for the country, someone who's really making a difference. And as you know, and the pages know, I like to refer to this person as the Alaskan of the week. It's one of my favorite parts of the week here in the Senate, being able to talk about someone who's made a real difference. Now, right now, in Alaska, where I give this speech every week, I like to talk about what's going on in Alaska. It's certainly the most beautiful state. It's the biggest state, we all know that, in the country. And the state's fully in bloom. Its tourists are flocking north by the tens of thousands to view the wildlife and the glaciers and the mountains. They'll eat our delicious seafood, take in amazing views, do hikes, have an adventure. And by the way, I want to make sure everybody's watching in the gallery or on TV, on C-SPAN, you got to come up to Alaska. You'll have the trip of a lifetime, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Come on up. But what's truly impressive about my state is the people who live there and the sense of the community that we have there. Now, Alaska isn't always the easiest place to live in. It's a little bit far from the lower 48. The weather can be extreme. But as a result, the people in the communities bond and they work together, particularly in some of our more remote communities. We're like one big community in Alaska, even though the state's so big, and every community in America, let alone Alaska, needs to be able to share reliable, credible information. Now, Mr. President, on that topic, there's been quite a lot of, I would say, negative attention paid to the media, the national media in particular, these past few years. Some of it merited. Nobody's perfect, right? But the vital role of local journalism and how that plays in different communities across our country hasn't really been talked about nearly enough. Because we all know this, and in many ways we all benefit from it. There are thousands of local reporters working hard in our country, day in, day out, doing great fact-finding stories and working hard. And I believe we should all be saluting them when they're doing this important work. So that's what we're doing today. I'd like to introduce Ed Schoenfeld, a reporter in Alaska who is our Alaskan of the week, who has been reliably reporting the news from Southeast Alaska for 37 years, and who just recently took a well-earned retirement. 37 years. Well done, Ed. You are our Alaskan of the week. So, let me talk a little bit about Ed. He hitchhiked to Fairbanks when he was 20 years old for a little trip, and as so many do, he promised himself that when he had the opportunity, he would come back to Alaska. And that opportunity came in 1979 when the program director position opened up at the public broadcasting station KTOO in Juneau, Alaska. Now, Alaska Public Radio was and still is in many ways renowned across the country for its local reporting and for its crucial link to rural communities who need that reporting throughout our state and need it badly. And interestingly, I think because of the challenges that it presents to reporters, some of National Public Radio's most famous reporters, nationally, NPR's most famous reporters, have all cut their teeth in Alaska. So some of the people listening probably have heard of Peter Kenyon, Corey Flintoff, Elizabeth Arnold. These are kind of the big dogs at NPR right now. Well, they all got their start in Alaska. So public radio is where Alaskans throughout my state get their news about the weather, about whale hunts, about bear attacks, about births, deaths, crimes, baptism, good works, bad deeds, you name it. That's where we get our information. And in the smaller communities, this information can be critical. Because the public radio stations across Alaska work cooperatively, they always pretty much keep it local. So from KTOO, Ed went to the newsroom of the Juneau Empire, where he stayed for 18 years. That's the big paper in Juneau. And for the last 15 years, he's been one of the voices of Southeast Alaska on Coast Alaska, a public broadcasting consortium of 5 local communities. His nickname is Dean of the Douglas Press Corps. Now, this is a bit of a joke, not towards him, but just what Douglas means. Douglas is an island of about 3,000 people. But as the Juneau Empire put it, Ed has earned him the professorial status, the Dean of the Press Corps. And that status became because of the dozens and dozens of reporters he has trained and mentored throughout the years. And that's a great legacy. But of course, he also takes his work very seriously. He's done plenty of lighthearted features about equestrians in Wrangell, exploring caves in the Tongass National Forest, by the way, the largest national forest in the country. But there are also deeper dives, as you would expect from a serious journalist. He's won an investigative journalism award about allegations of corruption related to a state contract. He has covered our important businesses extensively, and there's nobody who has done more digging into an issue that I and my fellow Alaskans care deeply about, particularly in Southeast, and that's what we call the transboundary mining issue. Mining waste that comes from mines in Canada into Alaska's waters. Ed is focused on that more than any other reporter. And it's an issue that, as I mentioned, many of us take very, very seriously. Transboundary mining is complex. Ed has traveled both in Canada and Alaska to the communities that are impacted by this pollution. He's spoken to everyone, community leaders, fishermen, government officials, environmentalists, mining companies, tourism businesses, and what he ultimately came to on this subject, our concerns about this pollution are legitimate, but unlike some are saying not all mines are bad, certainly not in Alaska. We have a number of mines. Certainly some are trying to do the right thing. It's more complicated than what the critics often say, says Ed. And that's the way it is on most stories. And that's why we need good reporters. So, Mr. President, many issues are complicated. And we can get so frustrated with the kind of simplistic he said, she said reporting that gets in the papers or on TV today. But good reporters, as we all know, dig much deeper. They cut through the propaganda. They lay out all the facts and facets of an issue. And in many ways, they let us decide. They recognize the people who are listening are intelligent. And they try and help us figure out the importance of some of these big issues. These are the kind of reporters that we need in every community. These are the kind of reporters that I think are critical for our democracy. So now Ed will spend more time with his wife and also a former reporter, Betsy, and his 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Maggie. I'm sorry to see him, as I'm sure most Alaskans are, hang up his dean's robe. I know his colleagues are sad, but there will be others that follow in his footsteps, others that he's mentored. Young, eager reporters who want to inform their community, reliably report the news and facts. And of course, there's no better place to do that than in Alaska. So Ed, thanks for all your work, 37 years of hard work for our great state, and congratulations on being our Alaskan of the Week. Your voice will be missed.